they are meeting next week, this coming week, with the Pope, for example. They are on American television, on Israeli television. They're speaking all over the world, and they're bringing the plight of their families to an emotional pitch that, if you're not here, is almost hard to take in. So yes, the pressure is definitely mounting. It's interesting, when Benjamin Netanyahu first spoke about his war aims, the return of the hostages was not amongst them. So it has been the pressure from these families. They got organised pretty quickly, and I think it's that pressure has moved them up into second place in his war aims. I think it's interesting that if you listen closely, you can hear that perhaps for Benny Gantz, who is not in part of this coalition government, but is part of the war cabinet. So he's an opposition party who's come into the war cabinet. And for him, I'd say perhaps the return of the hostages is in the first place. And I think that what that leads to is, maybe when they're sitting in the war cabinet, there's a difference of perspective about what deals they should take and what terms those deals should have. When Netanyahu was asked directly, because there have been reports in the Israeli media that there was a deal and that there's a difference of perspective, when he was asked directly, was there a deal on Tuesday night and did you turn it down or prevent it from being accepted? He said, no, there was no deal on the table, and there are many false reports in the media. But because there are all these reports and all these suggestions that there's almost a deal, that there would be 70 hostages, there'd be 50 hostages, because all that changes all the time. I think he was forced to say there is no deal and I haven't prevented one, just to give you a feeling of how much this issue now dominates Israeli politics.
So, as we say there, Iris, a strong emphasis on bringing the hostages home. In the meantime, on the political front, Benjamin Netanyahu this evening fielded several questions over his political future, questions of whether he should step down once this is all over, with one journalist asking Benny Gantz if he thinks that Netanyahu should step down. So a lot of pressure there on Netanyahu equally.
A lot of pressure on Netanyahu, and I would say since the beginning of this war, almost every poll that we've heard has suggested a huge disappointment from the Israeli public in its leader, in its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and that includes amongst right-wing voters. So this is a live issue. I think almost on a daily basis, we see someone calling for Netanyahu to leave office. Some after the war, and some are saying no, he cannot no longer run this war. He can no longer even remain Prime Minister now. He's a danger to this country. And I've heard that from right-wing commentators as well. So I think that's why he was fielding so many questions about his political future. That's why they were asking Benny Gantz, who's not from his party. They were asking his defense minister, who is from his party. So yes, the pressure is definitely on Benjamin Netanyahu. And what he was saying is what he said from the beginning of this war, which is, I am here to run this military campaign. Anything else is just politics, and I quote, and politics is for after the war. So you're not getting any sense from him that he plans to go. And when he was asked about support within the Likud for his removal, he said no, when he goes around the Likud, what he hears, that's his right-wing party, the party he's been heading for all these years now, what he hears from the Likud is support for his 3 war aims, which he reiterated over and over again. So he's not planning to go anywhere, despite the huge pressure, and answered no questions about that directly.